Hello, everyone. We got through the work week. It's Friday. We've got a lot of active weather still, both in terms of severe thunderstorms, higher risks than I've seen in the mid part of summer coming out of the Storm Prediction Center. I'll tell you more about where those are located and where they're headed. Also, this time of year, we do get slow-moving thunderstorms, heavy rain potential, but because of the jet stream flow, we still have very many active days where heavy rainfall is going to occur, including along a stalled front, and this could eventually impact portions of Texas. I'll tell you how far and how deep into Texas that threat will occur. All that is coming up here real quick. Severe weather outlooks have been quite intense here for almost the middle of July. To have a level 3 out of 5 storm risk is a little unusual, but there it is nevertheless. Centered over parts of Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri here for the remainder of the evening. Already very active there as I record this around 5 o'clock CDT. So Chicago's under the gun. They're not quite in that highest threat level, but again, close to the value is close enough. Kansas City has some trailing thunderstorms they're going to have to contend with. Maybe some more patchiness out there in Texas and Denver and back into parts of Kansas and Nebraska. Take a closer look at this level 3. So it covers places like Davenport and also Kirksville, those areas, and also into Illinois, just north of Peoria, and right along I-80, which is right here, and then, of course, Chicago right here. And this level 2 does extend down to Kansas City. There is a tornado threat worth mentioning on this for sure. 10% risk of tornadoes, and there's already warnings flying on many of these storms. So a 10% chance of a tornado within a 25-mile radius of any point you pick. So Davenport's in that, as is much of southeast Iowa and a chunk of western Illinois. NATOcast agrees with this assessment completely. In fact, they are actually 10% in the yellow there in almost the exact same area. So high confidence that that's going to happen. And as far as the wind, so the hatched area is a 10% chance or greater of a wind to 65 knots, roughly 70 miles an hour, and a 30% chance of just any severe wind from Chicago back to southeast Iowa. Here are the watches that are in effect. Tornado watch in the yellow area here. Severe thunderstorm watches for areas around Kansas City and Columbia, Missouri, into northern Missouri, and also up into parts of Wisconsin. Here's a couple of radar loops. This is the loops with the warnings. This was recorded probably about 4:30 CDT. And again, with all these videos, the warnings are just here for guidance. Certainly, these are not going to be current when you watch them, but you can see the tornado warnings have been popping out quite readily with some of these storms there and there and there. And the only confirmed tornado I saw was a brief touchdown with this storm right here so far. Take a look at a more local radar loop here, and this is showing the extent of the wind reports. All these little green areas here are local storm reports of wind gusts of 50, 60, might even I thought I saw 71 mile per hour wind gust in there as well. And you can also see which storms are producing the tornado warnings. As is typical in the summer, you usually get a linear mode pretty quick with these storms, but that, along with some isolated cells as well, like here and here, means that we could get tornadoes out of those as well. So it could either be in the line or in the isolated cells. So this is through tomorrow morning. It kind of shows the HRRR, the advancement of the squall line into northern Illinois, and fading out as we get toward morning. But still pretty potent here for the next several hours. So the bulk of the threat for this severe weather is certainly here in the evening hours, let's say between when this is being recorded at 5 o'clock and about midnight or so. So on Saturday, Detroit has a level 2 out of 5 risk, kind of a broad area of severe weather possibilities along the front, which includes Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and way down in southwest Texas. And then going to Sunday, the level goes down to only 1. But you can clearly see the front is not going anywhere. It's stalled out because the threat area doesn't move. And also this part of the front, which is typical in the summer, advances a little more quickly, so that threat shifts into the northeast. The latest NIU probabilities for supercells, this is July 18th through the 24th, shows pretty high frequency, really kind of far south, really kind of unusual. And then the highlight, and again, this is a cumulative forecast, so it's not any given day. It's a combination of days through this entire weekly period. Now, I mentioned that that front was stalled. Let's see what impact that's going to have on rain accumulations. Well, they're looking at the possibility, at least a 15% chance of rain exceeding flash flood guidance in all these yellow areas right here. So they're thinking these thunderstorms are going to extend back down here for the rest of tonight, and certainly you already saw them active there. This activity from Cheyenne back into Kansas and Nebraska, Amarillo, Texas. Also, the current watches for floods include two kind of separate areas, I guess you could say. So not only are they getting tornadoes and severe thunderstorm high winds, but also heavy rains from Des Moines due east into north central Illinois, small chunk of northeast Colorado, and then now the Lubbock office or whatever office does this hasn't filled this in yet, but flood watch here too. It's a very obvious hole that doesn't belong there. Just didn't want to wait for them to fill in the colors. Anyway, so a flood watch from Tulsa, Oklahoma City, back to Amarillo, Lubbock, Odessa, Midland area. And this is the hill country right here. So it just misses that area, but it certainly is close enough to be concerning. So we're going to keep an eye on that. There on Saturday, that yellow area, slight risk, 15% chance or more of that very same kind of flash flood guidance that would necessitate a warning. So that's what we're talking about in the yellow area here. And then on Sunday, still from the very same areas, the front obviously stalled here. So again, now this does get a little bit more, actually the hill country's right here. So, but what happens after this? Does this keep moving a little bit south? Yeah, I think it does. So we'll just keep an eye on that. Here is what the Weather Prediction Center is thinking for the next 3 days on total rainfall. So tonight's activity is obvious. And then as that front really begins to impact areas of Oklahoma and Texas. So if it's purple, I should have gotten rid of that label. That's about a 2-inch total. See how it tends to go to yellow? It's 3-4 inch totals are possible in isolated pockets, but we can take a closer look at that. The only difference between this and the previous map is this goes out 5 days. So we're seeing 4-inch bullseyes there in southeast Oklahoma. 2 to 3 inch totals very common from Joplin back into the Midland, Texas area and every point in between. And if you're curious about long-term precipitation effects, just pick a date here. So this is a progressive system, June 14th and then to the 15th and 16th. So it moves from here to basically here. And then this is the 16th through the 17th. So another stall front next week, a little bit of monsoonal rain developing in parts of Arizona and also New Mexico. And then June 14th through the 16th, we've got some heavy rain possibilities in Florida with a special emphasis, it looks like, for the western part of Florida. Take a look at the whole country now. Here is the visible satellite loop. This system is clear with the thunderstorm is just absolutely blowing up. You can see a swirl in the clouds up here and pretty much air mass thunderstorms down in the southeast U.S. Pretty clear out west. Not much going on except hot temperatures. We'll take a zoomed in, not the zoomed in look. We'll take a look at the 500 millibar analysis. This is enough of a trough right here to cause trouble. This is a stronger one coming in. That's what's going to drive the front, but not completely down to the south. As you saw, it's going to kind of waver and stall in this area here. What fronts are we talking about? Well, there's a weak front right here. See this little wave right here is what we call this in meteorological circles. This is a weak low pressure area right around St. Joe, Missouri. This and the front are enough to initiate that tornado threat. I've said on this video before that in the summer, one of the missing ingredients for widespread tornadoes is that you don't have the low level turning of the winds more coming out of the southeast like this. Well, lows do that since air converges toward the center of the low and goes to the left toward the low pressure. You can get that kind of bending, especially at night. So the next couple of hours are going to be critical in this area here as that low advances along the front. Then we have the main front here with the high centered over Montana. That was that upper level disturbance that's going to help drive that deeper into the U.S., but not completely through and not very progressive. Take a look at a zoom in shot. I was telling you about that. The thunderstorms like mushrooms, very obvious there. So is the cool air swirling in behind this in North Dakota. Unstable air, but not in the same way. It just produces low-level towering cumulus clouds and some showers up there. Take a look at the instability here. So we have, if you see, this is a 5,000 cape here where these thunderstorms are developing. And this air that's feeding in here is in that range, about 4,000 to 5,000 cape. Anything that's drawn with a red line here. So very unstable air. Usually unstable air this time of year is not hard to find, but there's a lid in the atmosphere that prevents the convection. Well, all that's been removed with the upper level features and that low at the surface, all conspiring to get these thunderstorms going here tonight. Well, on the hot side of things, and you saw how clear it was out west, and we have heat advisories, just a smattering of them, really, from parts of New Mexico and then back through parts of Nevada, Northern California, the Valley region around Fresno, interior of Washington. Extreme heat warning in effect for extreme northwestern California and also around the Medford, Oregon area. So high temperatures tomorrow, Saturday, will be well above 100. Vegas will hit 109 tomorrow. Phoenix right around 104, 106 degrees. A couple of 110 values there in Southern California. It doesn't get much better on Sunday. Still very, very hot. I did not see an excessive heat warning for these areas when I called the map. Maybe there will be one. It seems like there should be one, but it's possible that the Weather Service, this time in the afternoon, they are updating their forecast, and there could have been a hole or a gap in there. But because this hasn't changed since yesterday's video. Let's take a look at temperature patterns on the whole Saturday in the wake of this front and with all the rain and cloud cover associated with it. Very, very cool. So again, this over here, the colors indicate below normal with the greens and the blues. So the high right in the middle of July and we'll barely get to 80 in Dodge, for example, and in Amarillo, Texas, 81. Much of the east is fairly toasty, but not excessively warm. Some 90s in Ohio and Pennsylvania on Saturday. And you can see that interior heat building in parts of Northern California and around Washington as well. Take a look at Monday, skipping 2 days ahead. The heat spreads quickly in the retreat of that. The front is stalling here, but the heat's returning very quickly with parts of South Dakota close to 100 degrees. You can still see the cooling effects of that rain. And then on Wednesday, another front comes in. I'll show you why that's going to happen on the next slide. But look at how cool it's going to be across the northern plains. Amazing. High temperatures on Wednesday in parts of the Dakotas will fail to get to 70 degrees. Pretty weird for this time of year. Pretty hot up around Seattle about midweek with temperatures cracking 90 and maybe even getting into the upper 90s there around northern parts of Oregon. Let's take a look at one more thing here. This is the EPS 500 millibar anomaly or mean. So for July 13th through the 20th, so it's a 7-day mean, a weekly mean. So what's striking about this map is usually in the summer, this is a high pressure ridge. It's flat, very far south, but look at the zonal flow here. We typically don't see a lot of that in summer. So, and this is actually indicating this blue shading that this is a little bit below what we expect to see this time of year. So we expect to see a lot more of the orange color with ridging and a lot more hot air. But this summer, well, it started in spring, really. It just keeps on going. This encourages fronts to drop down, maybe not very far south, but at least into the central part of the country. And then if we look at rainfall anomalies, so the precipitation rate, so where it does rain, is this a little bit above what you expect? Well, for the July 13th through the 20th period, yeah, Florida is. Northern Mexico is, but by extension, this area here from Texas on into Missouri and Oklahoma looks like the rainfall rate will be pretty high July 13th through the 20th. Two more maps here, and then we'll finish for today. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, not a surprise here. Thursday of next week through Monday. Rain cooled and front supplied cool air. Meanwhile, Louisiana and Texas, high probability of those areas being pretty hot. Much of the country has a probability of being above normal on precipitation, with the highlights in the southeast and in parts of the Four Corner region and the desert southwest. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.